at Studio West, an amazing state-of-the-art studio that also has a school in it. So if you're looking for education, you've come to the right place. This is Steph Johnson, a music artist who is incredible and also runs Voices of Our City, a choir that is made up of individuals who are homeless, unsheltered, and we have a lot to talk about.
We have so much to talk about.
I know. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and we even, have like almost done it before, and I'm glad we're actually doing it right now.
Me too. And at Studio West, which is a place that the choirs come many times. I've recorded here, so it just feels really full circle, like I said, coming here.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's great because, for me too, getting to kind of come back home after I've done a bunch of episodes in other places feels really good. And we kind of met through Peter, who owns and operates Studio West, so it also makes a lot of sense. And Tim Godwin.
From Taylor Guitars.
Yeah, Taylor.
He texted me and said, hey, I know this guy. He's like, dude, he's cool. I think he's cool. I think you guys would like each other.
Yeah.
And he's doing this podcast about mental health.
That's right.
And I was like, that sounds good.
Yeah, he was awesome about connecting us. Actually, we met Peter through Tim, and all that actually is what happened. You're reminding me. My space-based brain is playing into it again. But I wanna talk to you about so many things. Okay, and I think what we should start with is you before we talk about all things related to the choir and all that, because I find so much about you very interesting in the music industry, in the entertainment industry. So many people, it's all about them. Everything they do is focused on their own light shining. And what I find very, very impressive about you is that your light is shining like on other people as much as yourself. And by helping all these people, in the county understand that they are welcome and that they are loved and have a place that people want them there, and like that is a very big thing. But you switched gears in your life to do this, and I want to start with your passion for music, because that's where I know it all comes from, is just how much music has directed your life and been a driving force. So I want to ask, how did you get into music? What was it about music that started you on this path?
Well, I was pretty lucky. My family played great music. They played instruments and they sang, but they also played great artists like all the time. A lot of Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and Joni Mitchell and Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
So, and I also grew up in the era where like parents didn't let you like change the stereo. Remember that back in the day?
I do.
Now you guys got kids and you got to like adapt to what they need to hear.
Yeah.
My mom was like, calm down. You're going to listen to Joni Mitchell. You're going to listen to...
Good for her too, because like you learn a lot if you listen to Joni Mitchell.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I sang in school here and there, but we moved around a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on with my mom's health, and parents split up when I was young. So I was traveling back and forth between San Diego and a chicken farm in Arkansas, which is why I'm so well-rounded.
Wait. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's where you lived for a period of time?
Yeah. I'd go there every summer. And then I spent a year of high school actually in this town called Alpena, Arkansas.
Interesting. I didn't know that about
314 people live in that town.
Oh my God.
I know.
And it's all chicken-based, like economy?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's farmers, it's hunters, people of the earth, and it was amazing.
That's a very important industry in our country and in the world, obviously. Farming is becoming kind of a lost art because it's not about small towns and people like, doing it with their families and their neighbors. It's turned into, obviously, like a massive business. It's really interesting that you have that background.
It is, and coming back and forth between, that music. My dad listened to a lot of John Prine, and he's an acoustic guy.
Yeah.
My mom plays piano and sings. And so, music was around, and when you're young and you're learning an instrument, you start with like Mary Had a Little Lamb.
What instrument did you start with?
I think I started with piano.
Okay.
But I didn't like to practice.
Yeah.
And I didn't get an award at the end for doing good, okay? Like I was like made an example of like, okay, don't give this girl a piece of paper. She didn't really practice. So I thought I wasn't a musician. because it didn't just come naturally to me.
Okay.
Because I'd see my people around me just be able to play and sing. And so I didn't know that it takes a while to like learn that skill.
I see.
And so then I tried tenor saxophone, kind of like Lisa Homer, like with her sax, like in a case, dragging it on wheels to school. And
Lisa Simpson.
Lisa Simpson, Homer, Lisa Simpson.
I was like, if you said any other name, I might not have got it, but Homer, yeah.
Homer.
Yeah.
So, and then I sang in choirs and stuff, but I just had a big voice. I could belt. And the choir director was always like, okay, we have a little too much coming from the alto section. We need you to, So I just thought I don't have it. So I didn't sing or do music from the time I was like 10 or 11 until I was 21.
I'm so glad you didn't mind that comment about toning it down, because I feel like sometimes there's that one thing that people will say that will alter the trajectory of someone's life, and it should not be determined on that sort of reflection from someone entirely.
Well, it did in that moment.
Okay.
I mean, you're so impressionable and you're just young, and if you're the outside person, you can feel really, really outside of the group. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'm not here to do music. But then when I was about 20, 21, I was living with my friend Heather, and I was singing all the time. I loved Jill Scott and like the Roots and like the musicians out of Philly. I was just like, this is amazing.
You're talking my language.
And that was the first time I heard someone singing that was like poetry and low, like she could sing really low. And it was on the radio, and back when the radio played cool stuff. And so anyway,
there's still some cool stuff out there.
There is. There are.
I feel like there's not as much like bands, like there's still great artists, but I don't like there's not as many like cohesive bands that will play like live and really be emblematic of what I think we're remembering as like what a band is.
Or like stations that would like take a chance and like, here's a new artist, KCRW is great for that, but like a lot of other things are really scripted. Mm-hmm, and so I was really lucky that this was being played on the radio.
Yeah, cool.
And I was singing it so much that my friend was like, you need to go sing somewhere, like get out of the house. Go answer an ad, call somebody. So I found this woman in the paper. Her name was Shyla Nibby, and I went and had a voice lesson with her. And after I did my voice lesson with her, and I was terrified, I was like, oh my God, because here I was doing it again, and I was like, I'm going to be told, like, you need to get out of here. And she kept her head down the whole time while I was singing.
Just listening.
And I was like, the whole time I'm singing in my mind, I'm like, I'm terrible, like this sucks, like I got to get out of here. And I finished singing, and she picked her head up, and she was just like, why aren't you singing right now? Like, why aren't you singing professionally right now? And I was like, really?
Yeah.
And so then about a month later, I got a paid gig, singing backup with Glenn Fisher in town. He's a bass player.
So cool.
And I got paid $150. And I was like...
Feels good, that first paycheck.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, you mean I get money to like ooh and ah on stage? I was like, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the same kind of stuff of like the first time my band actually got paid to do it. And I was like, wait, like we got to have all that fun.
Yeah.
And now I'm going home with money. Like this is crazy. And like, give me more of the feeling, give me more of whatever it is. And it wasn't about the money. It's about like, oh my God, I love doing this.
Yeah, but that it's a job. Like, it was the first time I was seeing that. And that was, Glenn Fisher had a big band. And so it was a bunch of musicians from actually Ray Charles's band. And there was like a bunch of people on stage. And so that was really cool. I learned a lot. Just kind of being a part of different musical configurations. And so I started to do open mics, and I met this guy who I ended up dating for a while. His name was Matt. And he was like, okay, cool, you sing. What are you going to say? What's your voice, And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, well, he's like, I play guitar, playing an instrument's kind of cool if you can, learn an instrument and do your own thing.
Yeah.
And so I went and got a guitar, and someone at Moonlight Music in Leucadia taught me how to
neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love it.
Taught me how to play like a kind of bossa D minor groove, D minor 9 groove, and I was like, that's not Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like that I can get into.
Yeah.
And so I went home, and I just played and sang and played, and 8 hours went by. And I was like, it was like dark outside. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I guess I really like this.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I just got totally lost in it, and dropped out of community college. I was working towards like a teaching degree. And I was like, well, I'll just take a semester off and see what happens. And then I formed a band, I started gigging and making music, and then that became my profession.
Wow. And so with the teaching degree that you were maybe going for, was that anything to do with music, or was it was just other stuff?
Just
so
like
you
elementary school teaching, like I
see.
thought, I think when you're starting out too, depending on, who you're exposed to or what you have as an example, sometimes there's these roles that like really pertain to a gender, so like the women in my world, were nurses and teachers and things like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go be a teacher.
Okay.
I love kids. I love,
Yeah. These gender things we got to get rid of.
Oh, totally.
As far as I'm concerned, like women should be running this world. Like there's, I think I said it
here.
Yeah, I think I said it
here.
in another podcast. Will Ferrell has this like funny clip or whatever that I saw on Instagram or whatever. And he's like, hey, maybe we should let the ladies take over. We're not doing so good. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Like we need to get out of the way.
And I think if I had met
yeah.
a woman at that time who was a female jazz guitarist,
yeah,
or if I had met like a female band leader who was writing her own music, I mean, the moment that you start to meet women in that profession or in areas of interest,
yeah,
you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I find too, once like they kind of like find their own lane, those individuals who really stand out in music, or like in my wife's case, in her arena of corporate business and retail, they are empowered as they go, seeing that they need to lead by example in that, as like there's not enough women that kind of keep moving up in that way in a lot of
it's your job
times.
if you move up, I mean, to help especially I think a diverse space, and women and men of color, bringing them into leadership and coaching that and like seeing that and building that in your sharing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really like hopeful that the next generation will have more equanimity, and just like the leaders will be who they are, not based on anything but like, who has the leadership skills, rather than like who's got and
you got to get that opportunity too. So it's like, there's so much bias, and there's so much, like, I know that I have a privilege. I know that even though I'm a little Mexican, I mostly pass as white, and that I'm, tall, and I got this hair, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like you have you can get in the door in certain places. I mean, I built voices on my experience of being a band leader and producing my own music and touring, and know how to hear people and how to build teams and work together and advocate and speak on a mic. And so those skills, and also like a period of my life too, while I was trying to make it as a, kind of a self-employed artist, I worked in banking. So I was in banking from the time I was like 16. That was my first job, was at Bank of America.
Okay.
Until I was about 28 years old. I worked at different banks. So I also got this like business side too, or just at least like presenting,
That's valuable, I think, for especially knowing where you're at, which we're going to get to, is like just having like a more structured kind of like, I guess, experience. It's like helpful to like running something that's so massive and involves so many people. And
you don't know in life, like the experiences and the jobs and the people and the places you go, how one day everything like ties together, and it's everything you needed for this next phase.
Totally. That's amazing to hear, because I think we all need to take note of like where you're at in the moment. It's leading somewhere. And so if you're really cognizant of like, it's not just that moment, but you're going to grow.
It's a stepping stone for sure.
And also while you're on that journey, there's something my band learned that I got to say that's making me think of is like, while you're going, you're going to meet people along the way, and they might be above you, they might be below you on sort of their journey or the totem pole of your work environment. I think it's very important to always treat people the way you'd want to be treated, and like they're going to end up being your boss or something, because you never know who's going to come around and sort of end up being your boss or something like that, where it's like, the kid that, like maybe I hazed at one point is now like running a company or something like that.
For sure.
So it's something to take note of as you go, to just be, I think, always treating people the way you want to be treated.
And like in my journey of music, gigging and writing songs and putting a band together and touring and all that. I was just talking about this with the choir. We have a songwriting workshop, and I was talking about how, actually it was in our soul space workshop, where we have like a mental health conversation. We talk about what coping skills we use to kind of get through life. What do we lean on? How do we get out of our head and kind of get into this, you know?
Yes.
And we were talking about ego, and that ego led me to the stage, right? Like ego, I saw someone playing and I was like, well, I can do it at least as good as that, you know? And I was kind of like into the lights and into that at first, but to grow and to get into it, it wasn't about attention or myself. It became about, first of all, the music and the conversation you have with the band.
Yes.
Your instrument, like that shedding and like getting into creating. Mm-hmm. And then you're also there for the people.
Yeah.
And when it flipped for me, my whole music journey really shifted too.
Well, so before we talk about the shift, I want to talk about leading up to that, because I mean, so people understand, you had a career that was building, and you were doing your own thing.
Yeah.
You were making music on your own. You recorded a studio album, and that was, if I'm remembering, 2016.
Yeah, that
back
was
then, right?
Yeah, that was like my third or fourth, maybe. The ones that you want to evaporate, you just let them fall off of the internet.
There's a magic to those.
There's 3 that are out there.
Yeah. All right. So people should only listen to the 2016.
Listen to the ones you find.
Yeah. Anything prior to that is like the baseball cards. You just kind of
yeah. That was an era. That was a time.
Maybe I'll find those later in a shoebox.
2016, I got to work with Kamau Kenyatta, who's a Grammy-winning producer, works with a lot of great artists, amazing artists, and I met him through my husband, Rob Thorson, who's an incredible bass player, and my #1 champion, which is beautiful. And
love that.
So we were doing a gig together, and Kamau was on the gig, and I knew who he was, and I was kind of like, hey, would you be down to work together? And he's like, absolutely.
Awesome.
So he produced that album. It's called Music is Art. It's an original. Yeah. It's all original.
Yeah.
And he was just really empowering, and it was cool because the record had some of the musicians in his world on it. So like this guy Jimo, guitar player who was playing with Earth, Wind & Fire towards the end. That was like a recent band he was playing with.
Yeah.
And then also this incredible keyboardist, organist, with Andre Pavek, who's out in the East Coast. He was on the record. But I remember like ego thinking like, well, I can't have another guitar player on the record, right? Like I got to be the guitar player. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, man, no, it's cool. It's cool if you have other gigs. Yeah. Because it's like, you do you. Yeah. And they're doing them. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. So there was just like, I think, we have these fears and ideas of, whatever and wherever they come from. Sure. But that was a great experience, and I'm really happy with a lot of those songs that came out the way they did. And Be Light, I think, was one of those songs.
I love that song. We're going to play that one of these days.
Happy People, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and just, and then one of the songs on that record, it was a song called Maybe. And that got used in a documentary that was made about the choir. Oh, cool. So in 2016, I had just finished this album, and I was going to start like working these contacts I had in Europe. I was going to, we had been doing Southwest United States and Baja touring. Okay. In the Vanagon with the pop top. God bless. Okay, 1990. That's awesome. Okay, we got the drummer in the back. Mm-hmm. Rob's driving. I mean, I can picture it's 100 degrees. Yeah. Yeah, the Vanagons will get you anywhere, but you might be a little sweaty when you get there. Yeah. A little bit sweaty, but the most fun, the best. I love the feeling of like, once you like leave, like, or you're packing or something, and you're on the road. Yes. And all the people you meet, every conversation, everything is just like in this cloud of like awesomeness. It's so exciting. It is. Because every moment is new, but it's it's going to pass, and you're going to have to go somewhere else. Yeah. So you get these very vivid, visceral connections. Totally. And that, people we're still friends with. Yeah. From all those days. Totally. Me too. I've done some of the pods with old friends that I've known for, decades now. It's really cool when you connect with people in that deep manner, and at those early stages too, because, generally, like, if you have that love and desire and you are passionate for the music, you're going to do everything you can to stay in it in one way or another. And then if you can have that journey with others and keep crossing paths, it's like you almost have those like friends from elementary school who remind you how to stay grounded. Totally. And get you when you're in those moments where you need support or anything. Well, I'm thinking of like the people who would house us. like the venues that were, small towns to like, these weren't huge stages, it's like a backyard concert with like, this awesome hippie couple in the town that has all these awesome concerts, and somehow you find out about them, and now you're sleeping in their basement and they're making you breakfast and you're playing in the anyways. So
I love it.
Incredible memories.
Good.
And but like I'd been going to NAMM, I'm sponsored by Heritage Guitars and Taylor Guitars, and I was like, okay, made some friends overseas, and I was going to go start like networking over there, and I was calling people and going to do some stuff. And at the same time that the album came out, this outreach that I had started with my friend Nina Deering, bringing music to people on the street. I was doing outreach for a while, I mean,
was that like going out on the street to like play music with them, or is that bringing them into a space how did that work in the beginning?
So it first started with me just getting to know my neighbors and who's living out there. And I wasn't always just bringing in a guitar and like singing, because it's like, that'd be pretty annoying, right? If you just rolled up to a tent and you're like, hey, hello. But I let a relationship grow.
I see.
And would bring food, blankets, just sit with people in their tents, like just get to know them.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, who are you? What are you about? And I'm like, well, I play music. My name's Steph. And they're like, oh, I sing, I play harmonica, I'm writing a book. And I was like, awesome. And so sometimes I would bring my guitar.
Yeah.
Then I started a band around with other musicians who were finding about this outreach. At the same time in 2016, things got really hot. There was like these really inhumane sweeps that the city was doing, the city of San Diego.
Yeah.
And they were installing jagged rocks under bridges. They were where people were sleeping because they were trying to clear the path to Petco Park and make it look like this wasn't happening, but seemingly
like go somewhere else, not here kind of stuff.
But like it seemed like overnight, thousands of people lost their housing.
Wow.
So I was really like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Started to educate myself, go to like activist advocacy meetings. And it was pretty hot. I mean, people were angry. People didn't know, we didn't know who to go to and how to get our elected officials to
actually
see
do
this. The people on the street can't get out of the situation. And the people on the street knew it too. I remember sitting in a tent with this gentleman who was like telling me about his situation. And I was super green and naive then, Benj. I was just like, let's revolt, I was like, let's march down the street and demand. And he was like, kind of like, who's this girl? And he said, it doesn't matter because we don't have a voice. I mean, I remember it really clearly. We don't have a voice, and we're in this, we can't break out of it. Like they don't want us to break out of the system. And I was like, that's crazy. And then I met a woman like the same day or the next day who said, oh, you sing? I sing, Google my name. And so I looked her up, and she'd been singing in a choir for people that are experiencing homelessness, like in the Midwest somewhere. Wow. And I was like, wow. Like, so that was the first time I thought of people coming together to sing. I hadn't thought of that idea until that moment, and that woman told me that. And so
especially coming after a gentleman who says like we don't have a voice, and so it's almost like you go from like the yin to the yang of the moment, and to like make a spark
in like almost like the same 24 hours. This happened.
Wow.
Then right after I met that woman, I met this pastor downtown, Chris Nafis, who was like, hey, I like the outreach you're doing. We would do pop-up tents and serve ice water, and it was really hot that summer. Serve, fruit and sandwiches, and we'd have like music happening. And he said, I like this outreach you're doing. We have a warehouse that we have church service out of, like a sheet metal roof warehouse right over in like the like East Village area. And he said, yeah, you can come and use it for whatever you want. And I was like, oh, that'd be great, because I want to start a choir for people living on the street. And I said it, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, like it was like
it just kind of came out.
And he was like, okay.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. So then I called my friend Nina, who I had just met 2 weeks earlier. But I knew that she had experience directing choirs. And I really dug her energy. She's brilliant. She's since passed away. But Nina said, I called her up. I said, do you want to start a choir with me for people living on the street? And she said, absolutely. Like not without any pause.
Yeah.
The next day she came to my house with 3 charts, and then we started inviting people to this warehouse.
This is so cool stuff. It's awesome. Yeah.
So then we started small, started with this one guy coming. His name was Mark, and he'd make the coffee. And there was a sense of pride and ownership. He was experiencing homelessness. The pastor, kind of gave him the keys. He could open the place. And there was another guy that was there, John, who I met. And just people around, and they started to kind of sit down in the chairs and like hang, and it had a restroom, and we had little snacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so at first it was just being together with like 8 people.
Yeah.
And then
you're totally bootstrapping this. There's no 501c3 at this point.
No.
It's like you guys are just inviting people to make music together.
Totally.
Just to try to, provide a community, to give them some like space to feel human and okay.
And feel like,
a part of something.
And we didn't even know what the thing was. I mean, we were just like, hey, we're going to have practice. You want to come and so we used to sit in a circle.
Yeah.
Nina'd be on piano or I'd be on guitar. And so anyways, that at the time, because I had, I'm a San Diego native and I put out albums and I do gigs, my friends in the media were like catching on that there was something going on, because they were really trying to kind of expose this this humanitarian disaster.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to get into it and how to help, and but this was like this angle, this story, this joyful story in the middle of chaos.
Yeah.
And so it started to get coverage, and pretty soon there were 16 people at rehearsal, and this woman was interviewing me. Yeah, it was growing, and this woman interviewed me for it was like the end of 2016. I was talking about a concert I was doing with the band, with the guitar player from Earth, Wind & Fire, the horn section, my Grammy-winning producer, not my Grammy, but his Grammys. And she said, well, will the choir perform with you? And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I was being interviewed for a lot of different things, that I was doing.
Yeah.
And the choir was just a part of that, a big part of it, but new, very new.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't know if they'll perform with me. So then the next time I saw them in a rehearsal, I said, hey, do you guys want to do this gig with me? You want to do a few songs?
Sure.
Because we only knew 3 songs at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, barely.
But I mean, I can't imagine they're like, no.
Well, they kind of sat around and they were like, yeah, we'll do that. So courageous, so stepping into the unknown, you know?
Yeah.
So then I think I was telling you, because it's really important, because you were asking me okay, here you were a musician and then you shifted. And it was this concert. It was from this concert we did at the end of 2016 at Bread and Salt. And 300 people came to the concert. I couldn't believe it. A bunch of people I didn't know.
Yep.
They saw the article and they wanted to hear the choir. And so...
How did that feel? To have been working for your own thing, okay, and you're making music with a amazing person that you have a lot of respect for. He brings in other musicians, and you drop your ego during that to listen to them and learn from their advice and take that in. And then you get to a moment where you have a concert that's about you, and you're doing this in your hometown and all that, and then you decide, okay, I'm gonna allow this other thing to, be there and be part of this, and it's an element of what I'm going to do. But then it's that starts to change the whole thing. Where are you at in that? Because that moment is really big to me. Did you recognize?
I opened the show with my own tunes, you know, but I could feel this the audience was okay, where's the choir? We're here for the choir.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's bring this choir out. And they came out and they didn't even we didn't even know how to position them on stage. They didn't face the audience. They faced this way.
Yeah.
Nina was at she came up, she sat at the piano to direct.
Oh, that's cool.
And at the time I wasn't directing, and I just stepped in the back with actually my producer, Kamau.
Okay.
And we were watching, and the choir singing, and I might have been up there for the first song, but after that I stepped to the back. But they sang their first song and they finished, and the whole audience jumped to their feet, clapped, they were crying, they were cheering for them.
Wow.
It was so powerful, because I was a little worried, how will all these, this is a group of people that is hitting the most challenging pieces of life that you can imagine and that you can't even imagine.
Right.
And they've never really, some of them had sung before, but most of them hadn't. And so here's all these people coming who saw this article. I didn't want them to be judged, or I just was concerned, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
all of the people in that room were looking for a way to honor and celebrate them, and it was so special.
Yeah, it sounds like these people got like dignity out of the moment. You know, like there was a sense
physical. Physically, you could see it. They were like standing kind of like this, and when they realized it was
the applause was for them,
they smiled and they stood tall, and it was so special.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes of going from moment after moment of like not knowing where you're going to sleep, not, feeling like, like you don't know if you go to sleep, if police are going to show up and, kick you out of your spot or take you to jail or who knows. And, I find too, like, not to get too off the subject, but the police get orders. Like they're not all like those aren't people that are bad people. And what I'm saying, it's like they're, you know what I mean? Like
there's just no respite from any of it.
Yes.
Like they're,
I don't want to paint the cops as a bad thing because I support.
Women, walk all night to avoid being sexually attacked.
Okay, that's where I'm going with it. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable, and I mean, people, if you're out there for just a few nights, you're starting to step into PTSD. You're not getting sleep.
Yeah.
So people have been out there for a year or more. So
I want to ask you, okay. So there's the dignity that they show when they get the applause. What about the music itself as far as a healing element? Because I think the response of people actually being welcoming and loving about what they're hearing and experiencing and recognizing them as people is one thing. But how do you see what the music itself does for them? Is it like it's a therapy?
Well, we were always really intentional with the songs that we chose, you know? Everyone has a different path to enlightenment. Everyone has a different name for God, or it's nameless, or, so we respect that. So we kind of took that out of it. We also took out mom and dad reference out of it. And they were always songs about like, unity and love and acceptance and empowering and fun, like funk tunes, R&B, soul music,
I love that music. Yeah.
So now, I mean, to kind of jump from this time of 2016 and it starting with a few people, pretty soon it was 60. Pretty soon, Susan Pulischutz was, documenting it for this documentary that went out on PBS nationwide.
Awesome. Yeah.
Then we're getting these gigs and we're building a nonprofit with them, with them, at the organization consults with them. How do you want to grow? What do you want to do? What do we want to do more of? So, but now we have our own publishing company and we write our own music, and we have enough original songs that sometimes we go out and we do like a 4-song, gig, like we're at an event.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it, but they're all original songs.
Yeah.
So you know how rad that is to do your own music. So they're
empowering.
They're taking their not just suffering, but like this like total pain and darkness, and I guess just the darkest of days, and releasing it, and then it's grooving, and then you're making it poetry, and we all sing it together, and so it's pretty amazing. I mean,
it sounds like it's personally fulfilling for each individual.
Yeah.
But it's also like a greater purpose for you as well as all these people to be able to come together and impact others through music, right? Which is a dream me and my band had back in the day. We always wanted to just make a difference in people's everyday lives, and we looked at music as a way to heal, but also a way to make change, like if you can like be heard, if like you have a good message, people out there, I feel like music will like if there's like a screen over stuff, like music takes the screen away and it makes things easier to see.
Oh, for sure.
And in that, I think what you're able to do for these individuals, or what you all did together rather, is you removed the barrier of like these, like when people just hear like, these are homeless people, it's like they picture like worst case scenario and they remove the humanity of it. And what you're doing is actually showing the people in like the light that they want to be in if they had control in any capacity, it sounds like.
Well, and they show up. I mean, they care about the community.
Right.
They lift it up. It's dynamic and special and like feels like a family, because that's what they make it too,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I imagine that's something they've missed feeling for a long
Oh.
time. It's a missing link also to like being in like,
Of course.
yeah, like, I mean, I only know life with family and friends and, you know, a band and places where I feel like I belong. I can't imagine being so disassociated from all those types of things. And there's a million reasons why people will get into that. And I would think a lot of it is reasons that are out of their control.
And imagine not having, I'm so glad you said that, because like without that family and the network and like places you can be and go that you know and that know you, when all those are taken away and you're also not allowed to like sit down, there's no place that you're welcome. It is like unbelievable to me that folks continue on with showing kindness out there and being, you know, as much of a communicator. And I mean, I think back to homelessness, like I think that we need to just remember that the folks that you see that are out there that are like really, you know, having their suffering on display. Yeah. That is one part of a wide array of people who no longer can afford housing in San Diego. So the person working at the restaurant, to the student in college, to a family, to veterans, to seniors, so many senior women living in their cars. It's like, that's what the choir does, right? The choir, I mean, and we also have programs and outreach and services that are for a large group of people in different, you know, different spaces of this, you know? But in our community, our Monday choir rehearsal, everybody is welcome that, you know, honors the kind of community guidelines that we respect each other and we're sober, we're present, we use kindness and, you know, and
the way the world should be.
The way the world should be, and they embody that, and it feels good, you know. And if someone comes in and they're not in the right space, we go, hey, you know what? Once you come back next week, like this is a guideline here, and they do. If they want to be there, and we have a great meal, and it's full band, 100 people singing. It's a pretty great way to start the week.
Totally. And from having attended one of those rehearsals, it was beautiful, you know, to just see these faces light up when the song started and they saw people that they knew. And, you know, like there was a moment where you were like, you know, say hi to the people around you and all that. And everybody was like, who are you? Like, you know, they hadn't seen me. And I just, you know, I got to meet people and they're so open. You know, I could tell they felt good where they were. And I wanted more of that for them being there, just seeing like, because I could see that it was like they were so happy to be in that moment, and it was almost like I could sense that there weren't enough of those moments, and they were seeking more, and so I felt like I felt that. So let's go back a little bit, because you said some stuff about like building the organization, and I find your organization fascinating because like part of it is it was founded on your selflessness, and like the way it developed was like to me is somewhat happenstance of like all these really beautiful sort of like serendipitous moments that kept, you know, churning along. And
I call it God's magic carpet ride. I've been on it.
That's awesome. Can I use that? Yeah, God's magic carpet ride. I love it. Yeah, that sounds like something I feel like I'm on sometimes too, and sometimes I'm on like the carpet ride to like the
to rest.
Just
to pause.
I need to
the
pause
carpet ride to pause.
Okay, so building the organization, like when you started doing that, you didn't know where it was going, right? And so that you had to figure so many things out along the way. Was that stressful? Was that, you know, like, was that something you needed support during? Because there's so much to doing anything like that, I imagine. Like my band has a nonprofit fund. We don't have a foundation because running a foundation entails so much like red tape, if I will just call it something. There's a lot of that. And so I wonder, like, how was the experience of it for you?
It was tough because, you know, it wasn't our intention to create an organization, but actually it was suggested from like a mentor, actually Susan Pulishutz, the filmmaker. She said, you know, I think it'd be really great if you consider becoming a nonprofit. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, I think that people would give towards your work. And I was like, okay. And so then you form a board, right? No one's getting paid, right? Nobody's, you know, so you're just doing these, you know, long days. I think I was telling you it's like 16-hour days back to back to back, because at the time we are responding to this humanitarian crisis. I mean, there'd be times that I would leave rehearsal downtown and I'd walk to my car and I'd be swarmed by 20 people asking for things, needing things.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do what you can and build some sort of foundation around what is the thing you're offering, right? What is the thing that you can do? And a really sound organization has really, it has a strategy, it has a clear mission.
Yeah.
It has great partnerships. It has a great board. It has a great team of employees, of staff. People are all aligned with that mission. There's not like anybody who's like messing that vibe up.
Yeah, there's like an umbrella. You're all protected from the rain or whatever.
And at first when we started, it was a challenge to figure out who was leading.
Okay.
And, Nina and I threw ourselves in and it needed some organizational pieces that I had some more experience with. And, forming, like a board and things like that. Like I, went to my mentors at the time and the people around me to get advice and kind of start there. And, it's
so much work.
It's so much work. Yeah. You're
phone calls, meetings, like you have to think about what you want. You have to feel, like the response of everybody's comments and all of that.
And
that's years of planning.
And, for, being a good leader is like hearing the criticism and internalizing it. And if there's something you got to change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a lot of work and a lot of life-changing opportunity for me that made me figure out like how to represent people, a group of people, and speaking on behalf of a group of people who've lost their voice.
Yeah.
There's so much new research and understanding around like our privilege and our relationship to that. And so, I mean, you're just kind of inundated with, here's best practice, here's what you're doing. Like, I didn't even know what we were doing. I mean, we were just like,
we were
figuring out on the spot. And a friend of mine who, Doug Flaker, actually, he told me, he broke it down for me. He said, well, you're like this hub, and like people come there and then you are a connector to resources. So the music and the creative is what welcomes people, the radical hospitality, the good food, the music, and you are connecting them to the life-saving resources. And I was like, oh, sweet. We're like, at first he kind of said like a referral agency. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound that sexy, but that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, to really understand that we're a creative community for people impacted by homelessness, where they can tap into this renewed hope and resilience, and set themselves for a journey out of homelessness. And it's really incredible that we exist because it truly leans into art and music making and the creative as a way to find success. Because if you can express yourself and if you can tap into your uniqueness, then you start to feel a whole different way about life. So that happens. And as that's happening, we're like, hey, we've got like a member services team. Whenever you're ready and you want to come in and have a meeting, we'd love to know like where you're at and what we can do.
Yeah.
So
I think when you try to wear all the hats, or you have to wear all the hats because you're building something, so for me, I'm kind of going through this with What Could Be Bad, in that like, I don't have like, a big team or anything like that. I have Chris helping with the video. I have a guy helping with the editing, but like, the social media. So there's just so many parts of it that I want to like do in order to impact people, which is the same as when you're setting up to do that. And I think we put a pressure on ourselves because of that responsibility. But meanwhile, we're trying to relieve stress and we're trying to help people. but we're actually like causing ourselves like some stress.
Amen,
And
brother, yeah.
yeah. I mean, but like you can't help it because it becomes a calling. Like, you know that what you're doing makes a difference for even if it's like that one person and they come to you and tell you, it's like, okay, that's why I'm going to keep going.
And it's also your baby, and you want it to be great, and you want to like, you have a vision for like where it's going to be.
Yeah, totally. I feel you on that. So, I mean, did you hit points? Because I've hit points where I'm like, I have to turn this machine off for like a weekend, or I'm just like, I'm way too stressed for like doing this for the right reasons, but like I shouldn't feel this heavy about it, you know? And I mean, some of the subject matter is obviously kind of heavy, but like at the same time, like this is meant to be a healing thing. So I feel a lot of the stuff, but I mean, tell me about some moments, because I know you had some like where it was too much, you know, and you had to turn the volume down.
Yeah, I felt really called to the mission, and actually gave myself over to be used. It was like an open conversation I had one day with the divine, and just was like, hey, I'm yours to be used.
To be of service.
To be of service. I don't know what this looks like or what it is, but I'm down to lay it down. And I said, I'm even willing to die for it. That's how passionately I felt about it.
God bless.
And so here I started this journey of giving and figuring out things, and making a documentary. We had a shelter going on. We're hiring people. I've never employed people. I don't know, what they expect of me and we're speaking on the news. We're doing concerts with the symphony. Like, it was insane. It was so much stuff.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. And
you can't, like, those opportunities may not be there if you don't take them in that moment, but they could also lead you to others, which will grow what you've signed up for.
Well, and, I had made my living as a musician. And so that's how I knew how to make income. So in the beginning, we were doing like 14 gigs a month with the choir.
The coordination of a production, that is crazy.
I mean, that many gatherings, that many so it was a lot. And so every year since 2016 until about 2020, I would have a breakdown, kind of like a physical or emotional kind of just breaking point. But I would get back up. I'd pick myself back up pretty quickly. And then in 2019, right before the COVID was really a thing, I had all the COVID symptoms like in the end of 2019.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I was in and out of the hospital, and I was like really, I mean, it's also very similar to like pneumonia and like those other symptoms, but it was really lingering, and I was just like really struggling. At the same time, America's Got Talent reached out and asked if we would consider being on the show. And I was like, I didn't know what was going on with my health, but it was not good. And even my friend at the time who worked with the organization, helped with the organization, my friend Mindy, she said, you're going to die. She came to my house one day and she said, I was puffy, I was sweaty, I was like not in good health, but I couldn't stop. I mean, there was so many things to do.
It was your dream to build, yeah.
And she said, if you don't, you're going to die. And I was like, oh, like it was heavy.
That is heavy.
It is heavy.
I mean, there's nothing heavier.
No.
Yeah.
No, somebody you trust telling you that.
Yeah.
Because you don't really think that can happen, but our minds can keep us going. Your body can break down and your mind is still, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're getting into the mind talk.
That's
so,
good.
So then America's Got Talent reached out, asked if we would audition, and I was like, no way. Like, things were barely hung together by like a piece of floss, like it was really a hard time, and my health wasn't good. Then they just came back and they had a conversation with me, and they said, look, we'll do like a special audition for you. We're going to come to San Diego and have like some kind of like people we're inviting to an audition. We'll give you a specific time.
It's amazing. They're not taking no for an answer.
I know they did not. And so then of course I went to the choir and I said, okay, do you guys want to go on do you want to audition for America's Got Talent? And they were like, hell yeah, we want to audition for America's Got Talent. And I was like, okay, like the independent artist me was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's go do it. So we went, we auditioned, and that was an experience, and it was at the convention center. And then that was it. We didn't hear anything back. Okay. That was like the end of 2019. And I'm in and out of the hospital this whole time. Like for about 8 months, I was in and out of the hospital.
Wow.
And so I'm seeing it's 2020, beginning of 2020. It's January, end of January, and I'm seeing like my second specialist, finally starting to feel relief, finally starting to get better. And I get a call from this producer, Nigel from AGT, and he goes, so hello, so basically, so we'll have you come to LA and you'll stay in a hotel and you'll do this. And then the judges, you'll like, and he's talking about the judges, and I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you're going to be on the show. And I was like, oh, okay. So like,
it wasn't an audition to get like an audition. It was an audition to perform.
It was like an audition that moved to, you're going to be on the stage.
Wow.
So then they bus us up, okay?
Yeah.
Like 50 of us in a bus. The choir's losing their minds. Like they can't believe it. It's the best.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, what an opportunity and a way to like, be seen. As individuals, as a group, and what you guys built. Yeah.
Totally. So we're heading up to LA. They put us in hotel rooms where they do the taping. And we learned so much. Like that was one of our first gigs where we were in an away game.
Yeah.
And everyone went to their rooms. And I was like, wait, like nobody has cell phones, or like, what are their numbers? Like we can't call them.
Yep.
So it's like call times, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
So for 2.5 days, we were a part of this like crazy reality TV show taping.
Sure.
Like dogs on roller skates and like all that stuff.
And I can speak to how stressful like being on tour is for like, like guys who are, kind of on their own like schedules at the same time we're all on each other's.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to coordinate that. Like
Yes.
tour managers and production managers, stage managers, like those jobs aren't easy,
No.
and we say it's like herding cats when, we actually had one tour manager who was like, guys, just be there when I tell you to be there. Like, I need you to be there, and God bless him. He was, it's a hard thing where we just like, somebody gets a call from home, whatever, like you just end up being late or whatever, we're musicians, these things happen. But a group of as many people adds so much who've never been in that environment, but the complexity.
And we have a lot of seniors in our choir. I mean, people in walkers, wheelchair.
Wow.
So like okay, we need you here to do some B-roll shots. We'd move the whole choir. We'd go to another location and they go, oh, we actually don't need you for like 2 more hours. It was just like so much extra work. But the whole time we were doing all these tapings and they're, they're interviewing us to like make all this, like the whole package or whatever.
Sure.
We were so real. We could not be us. Yeah. And that felt really good. Like we were a thing. We were like a group of people.
Yeah. And
so then we were on the Sunday taping. We were the first act to go out. We did original song that the choir wrote, Sounds of the Sidewalk. And it was great. And Patricia, who has since passed away this year, actually, she did the spoken word in the song. And it was very powerful. And that morning, she woke up and she had lost her voice. And we were supposed to check out of the hotel, but then stay for like a taping and be there during the day.
Sure,
which is like really hard on a lot of their bodies.
I bet.
And they need a hotel room. I mean, some of these folks were, it felt, it's always been like a trip too, to like go and take the choir somewhere. And some of them are like sleeping in the park. But for this next 3 days, they're like really safe in a warm bed.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot, I would think, on there's well-being in the moment of like they have the security then, but they know it's not lasting and it's for this little chunk, and it's like, oh, I can actually like sleep in a real bed. Like maybe I won't set my alarm and I'll just like actually relax for the first time.
And just to say that we've learned a lot through that, we received a grant from the state and we use some of that towards transitional housing. And so, or to help people with like, if they're working towards something that we, can help with hotel rooms and things like that. We've learned to not, if somebody is without shelter, it is not, it's at the time we didn't know, we were just scrapping it together, but they need so much time to kind of rebuild and regroup before they're ready to kind of go out and go be on the stage. Sometimes they're ready and they want to go, but we've found that it's no, we really want you to get anchored into like some good sleep and take care of some life things before you're like on NBC in front of Terry Crews and it's just, so anyways.
No, I get it. And it's kind of like where I was going with it is just like that's a lot for a person to process, and like be in the moment with.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did our song and all the judges said their thing. And then Terry Crews comes off the stage, this beautiful Terry Crews in his like silk peach pink suit.
He's an amazing guy.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And he actually talked to us and interviewed us about an hour before we went on and kind of asked us about us and what we did. And I said, yeah, we sing together, but we also help people that are out on the street. And he was like, wow. And I was like, yeah, it's like, and then we were all around him and the choir was stoked. And
that's cool.
So anyway, so he, walks off the stage and he hits the golden buzzer and all this gold confetti shoots out from everywhere. There's the loudest, like, kind of horn, like ship foghorn sound.
Yeah. Wow.
My husband is like they're covered in gold confetti. He's like, what is going on? Like nobody knew what was happening. Yeah. Everybody's crying on stage, but all in good joy.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the choir saying like, if you had told me a year ago that I'd be on this stage, like doing this right now, right? So then that's all surreal. We walk off the stage, it's all a little bit showbiz. Like here's a Sony music contract, if or here's this big thick contract for the rest. And it was like, I was like, what is going on? It's so crazy. All that happened the day before the world shut down. So the world shuts down.
March 11th or March 10th?
Yeah, we taped, it was like March 9th.
Yeah, okay.
March 8th or March 9th.
Yeah.
We come home, we had a meeting, we all felt so great. We all went back to where we were staying, and then the world shut down.
The announcement, Trump got on TV finally and said, there's a pandemic going on, guys. Yeah.
And we pivoted. We opened up a 4-day-a-week distribution center. Mm-hmm. We were serving 200 people living on the street every day.
Wow.
I was making food in my kitchen for like our senior choir members. I was, we moved everything to online. We got a grant for laptops. We were getting people email addresses and teaching them how to use computers. And we stayed on the television show through the help of Studio West.
Yeah.
And the producers who were like, no, we got it.
Wow.
We're gonna come down and film the choir in front of a green screen in this studio. People who had never been in a studio before in their lives.
Yeah.
They're going to have in-ear monitors to hear the music. They can move like this in front of the green screen. Mm-hmm. We're going to like chop that out.
Yep.
And hologram that shit in the, can I say shit on the show?
You can say anything.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I always put the little explicit thing because yeah.
They're going to hologram them into the live performance on TV.
Yeah.
They're going to use movie special effects, right? I was like, what? So
that's wild.
It was so wild.
Yeah.
So we got the golden buzzer, but they didn't air that episode till the fall.
Okay.
So we were really scrapping together, trying to figure out how to take care of 200 people on the street, our choir, and also stay in this television show because I kept trying to get us out. I was like, let's come back another season. I was like, this is a crazy time.
Lot. Yeah.
And they're like, no, this is how we can do it. They ended up playing our clip, our golden buzzer moment on the season premiere. Mm. And in 1 week, 20 million people saw our mission and saw the choir. And about...
Did your website crash? I mean, that's insane.
It was great. And it was I think about $80,000 or $90,000 in donations came in, which was really super great. Helpful at that time.
I'm sure.
The longer we stayed on the show, there was kind of I think a view that we had kind of made it. And so donations stopped. And there was also kind of this kind of, perception that, that we were, here we are on TV and everything's great. Nobody's I was working many hours a week and
right, you didn't have the organizational structure to keep things going, and the donations gave you some breathing room, but then quickly it was that's all we got.
Right.
That's the whole thing of it.
And then when we got out of that show, people started calling us to do conferences, online conferences, Zoom. Remember all those conferences?
Oh, yeah.
All those events?
That stuff, to me, it was how do we pretend the world's normal right now?
Everyone became a TV producer. Everyone's streaming everything. And
yeah, totally.
So we were getting calls to do videos and show these videos. And so someone would say here's $10,000 to go in the studio, record and make a video. Mm. And that was helping get our mission out there, but it wasn't really helping our work. It was just enough to kind of cover the cost of the things that we were scrapping together and food for shoots and travel and all that, but it wasn't much else. And we just kept saying yes. And it was kind of I got to say yes. And I didn't say this, but the last taping on America's Got Talent, I was in a wheelchair because my back had collapsed.
So hold on, you're saying your back completely was you were debilitated while you're at America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
So the things you just explained that were happening are surreal and like once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it must have been stress and anxiety and all the things building that your body is just like enough already. But what's going through your mind when you're in this huge pivotal moment that you've worked so hard for and you can't stand up?
Panic, because the choir needs a director on camera and they need a director in that environment. And I kept having these back issues where like I literally couldn't get up. I mean,
it's like herniated disc, or it's just like you don't even know?
It was just a complete spasm, frozen, like, and really it was because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was putting my own health and physical well-being like way last on the list.
Yeah.
And so my body just, because my mind kept pushing and pushing, my body went out. And so, so I went to the last taping, barely made it, and I was driven to LA like flat on my back in a car. They met me with like a wheelchair. They always scooted the wheelchair off the set when we were like filming, but the choir was like so like, oh my God, like you're in a wheelchair. And I was like, it's okay. It's just temporary, because I was always making sure everybody was okay.
All right. First of all, you are amazing for like toughing it out, and it's amazing what you did for all these people who really needed it. It's amazing you got through that, and you know, and like just had the support of everyone there to make it happen. But I think the lesson obviously is very strong in that is like, you know, while you do big things and special things and you're being selfless, like you end up, if you're not taking care of yourself, you end up not being able to really do the work that you want to do. Talked about this with Matt Wallace a little bit earlier in the season. And, you know, it's hard to be in that moment because you really want to give more to your thing. In his case, it was being there for his family. And it's a different thing. It wasn't like his back went out, but he literally had to take mental vacations, you know, and he would do, I think he said jiu-jitsu and hikes and things to escape in order to give himself that time. So have you incorporated things that help you keep that balance now? I mean, I know it's probably staff members, but like, you know, with the choir, but I mean, having help and like balancing that, but for you personally.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I take, which is so funny. I keep saying for sure. And I realize like, I'm so like an 80s baby. Is that a funny thing to say?
We are.
Does anybody say for sure anymore?
I will.
Okay.
For sure.
For sure.
It's all good. We're Californians.
For sure. Yeah.
It's
sorry.
part of our vocabulary. It's like one word.
Rad, for sure.
Yeah.
I know.
We're good.
I was like hearing myself. I was like, that's so funny. I say that.
It's all good.
So what was about?
The question is, what have you incorporated into your life, the modalities of self-care that you've learned to do, you know, that have enabled you to keep the balance so you can do the work?
So after we finished with the taping and there was this pause and the world was paused, my gym was open because it had a rooftop gym. It was like one of the only gyms open in San Diego.
Cool.
And so I started just little by little on like a, you know, like a piece of equipment for 5 minutes, just a little bit for my back, a little bit. And I ended up like dropping a bunch of weight and took care of my health and prioritized that. But then my mind was like continuing to pushing myself to an unwell place. Yeah. Because I felt so responsible for so many things that were out of my control. And I also was like hitting the weed and drinking again at that period. Yeah. And trying to escape my own feelings about myself that I'm supposed to be better and perfect and a good person and better at what and so after all that, right, I'm physically kind of rebuilding, but the pressure of everything that was hitting after we finished the show, the television show, my mind flipped. And it was the first time that I'd ever experienced anything as scary as that. Because if you don't have your mind, the mind that you're used to, the world's totally different. Yeah. Everything in your house is different. Yeah. So I went through like a depression, like a period of just through exhaustion and overdoing it. But yeah, I became like an afraid, scared of my own life person. Yeah. And I had to let go of the organization for a couple months and let others lead. and I rebuilt my wellness through therapy, a great therapist,
Oh, good.
and
Yeah.
nature walks.
We have a lot of the same things. Yeah.
And roller skating on the boardwalk, and
Fun.
just being really connected to therapy and processing like what had happened. You know, that was like, now I'm kind of coming into like 2021, and I'm rebuilding my, psychology, like my wellness internally.
Sure.
And I had just been going now for like 5 years, like hard. And my therapist said, "Have you ever heard of something called a happy mania?" And I was like, "No." I'm like, "No." And she said, "Well, have you ever experienced depression before?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Not really, no." And she goes, "Because I've been knowing you for about 5 years, and I've never seen you like this."
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, there's people who are like experience depression, and they can go to, far extremes, right? Like, super manic, naked in the fountain, having a great time, like life is amazing, to I'm so depressed, and I'm have suicidal thoughts and harming myself." She goes, happy manic people, they're usually really successful, creative people. They're really driven. They wake up and they go. They usually have a team around them. People like are like this with them. And then they exhaust themselves and they fall down a little bit. And then they kind of have a couple days down, but then they rebuild and they're back.
Okay.
She goes, "I think that you pushed yourself for so long that you're down with such a big valley that it shocked you. It was like you've never experienced that valley before."
Yeah. That's incredible stuff. And I felt like your therapist was talking about me also. Because a lot of that is my journey that I hear in it, not to personalize your experience with mine, but I think there's a lot that I relate to in the expression of that. And, I know I have friends that have bipolar disorder, and it sounds like it's like the not to make light of it, but it's like the light version of that.
That's how she put it.
Yeah.
She's like, it's the light version of that.
Okay. And I mean, I think these things also are just, in a way, being very connected to your emotional scale, that you're just like, you're so like in touch with that, and you're so passionate that you can't help but move forward towards your goals, and you don't take your body's signals seriously enough, because your mind
until
is
you
like
collapse.
Yeah, until you're just completely gone. And I've been there, and I think that's something really special to have, and can actually enable success in wonderful ways. And I've talked to a guy named Paul English, who he has a organization called the Bipolar Social Club, and he says that it's enabled his success, and it makes him a better business person and person. It makes him more who he is in that. And I respect
kind of owning it and understanding it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And getting how it can be a benefit, and not looking at it as like a deficiency or anything like that, because it's like some of the world's greatest people are autistic, and like even I could give examples, but regardless, what it is I think it's like owning yourself, owning your own authentic self, but learning to keep that in check and in balance in a way that's healthy for you. Takes years, because like the discovery and the identification is a whole process, like you're explaining. And I realized my stuff through physical, like the health, like recovery, and I didn't pay attention to any of the mental health trauma that was going on in these years of my own issues that I was working through, so I could walk again, hold an instrument again, pick my kid up again. Those are like the big things I just remember as like, like they were just gone. And I had to work at those, and I did not focus on anything psychological, that those impacted, just not being able to do those for so long. And then, you stay so focused on that, and when those things come up that are those, those mental break moments, it's like you fall off the cliff, and there's no other way about it, because you've exhausted all your resources. You got nothing left. And I think it's noble to, like, at that point, accept that you have to like submit to this process of therapy and healing, because you have no choice. But it's also like accepting, like, as people, we can't be perfect, and as people, like, we all will have flaws, And this good friend of mine, Stephen Kellogg, he said, let me do this justice. You don't play. You don't not try to play in the NFL because you're not going to be Tom Brady. Like, you don't have to be Tom Brady to play in the NFL, I think is what he said. He's way more eloquent with lyrics and talking than I am in general. But his point is what we're saying, I think, is like, you still go for it regardless, and you just have to learn to work with that, and that's part of our journey is like, you do the best you can. And I think we're still doing great things, and
Totally.
all the people you've helped with your organization, it's so massive. And you've given those people such, dignity and respect that I have so much respect for you in that, and those individuals, it's such a visible thing in San Diego, that homelessness is so like ever present. And prevalent, like in all the different parts of it. Since I moved here in 2014, Encinitas has, it is like, I would even use the term like exploded, and I see it all over the place. And I just, I think you've put a really like personal understanding of what's going on out there, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. And it's really important, I think, for everyone to realize like every single person has a story. Every single person that you see, even if, like I 2 days ago, I see this thing on Instagram because I follow all the things going on in Encinitas. A guy was, yelling at a car, and people, some people in the comments are not like cool with that. And some people are like, be more, tolerant and understanding. And I just think we need to understand that there's so much we don't see of how people get into any moment, that we just need to be more understanding and more calm and look at it. That could be your aunt, that could be your brother,
Well, and our mental health, our medical and system, anybody who's tried to navigate healthcare is incredibly challenging if you have all your abilities. And
Totally.
And I've noticed a lot that whenever I'm in a space, usually like a public space, somebody's having a crisis and a breakdown or something's happening. And it's a lot to ask of society to all become the best empathetic or know what to do and all those things. But I have taken it upon myself, and my team has, to be trained, and because it allows me to know, how can I help somebody that is not getting the help they need? When do I know, like, to step aside and like remove myself? How do I what is the behavior that's threatening or not?
What is the best, like, how can you support them best?
And I notice a lot of times in public, people are pretty empathetic and pretty they share the space with everybody that's there.
That's good.
Yeah. And some people may get uncomfortable and whatever, but I always notice. I can just know if I'm at a taco shop, I'm somewhere. I was in La Jolla. I was at the taco stand. I love their bean and cheese burrito. And this guy keeps coming in and out and in and out. And, maybe they don't notice people aren't noticing, but I just am noticing everybody in there. And, he's near the soda fountain, so he can keep getting his drink, and he bought his meal and he's there, but he's adjusting to being inside and then removing himself, and
you can see the patterns.
Like he needs help, or he's without
shelter or something like that.
So I think it's I know those online chats and seeing, like what.
That's a whole other mental health thing, is when people are not accountable for, the things they say. They will say things they would never say to someone's face. And I think that's a whole other thing, is like on the internet, like treat the internet like you're actually talking to like your best friend or your mom, and say it like that. And I think we would have a very different landscape to deal with. We could go down that rabbit hole, but
that's for another
that's another podcast.
Another episode.
So we've covered so much, and you've like shine your own light. You've shined a light on so much of the individuals that I wanted to focus on in this. I thank you for all of that. I have one last question for you. All right. The question is related to a new idea I'm pushing forward with. It's called a What Could Be Bad record poll.
I love this idea, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I
into
already
it,
told you about it.
But I'm so into it.
Okay, so the record poll is simply that I want you to share a song or a piece of music that it's helped you. It's done something for you that's positive for your mental health. If you can just share, one of those, what I'm doing is creating a playlist and adding these to that. And I'm going to invite the audience to, share theirs through social media. And I'm going to actually end up interviewing people who share theirs through Instagram Live and all that, just to try to make the conversation of mental health more every day. I think that's my whole goal, is to level that playing field, destigmatize that playing field, and elevate people's, thoughts that make them feel better. So if you have one, I would love to hear it.
So when you were telling me this idea, I was thinking about songs that I really connect with. When I do really connect with a song, it stops me in my tracks, and I just listen to the lyrics and listen to it over and over again, and it usually makes me cry. It's just caught me.
Yeah.
It's so poignant. It's so special. Joni Mitchell's "Case of You" is an incredible song, and her later recordings where she's older and has that kind of low jazz, raspy voice.
Yeah.
You can hear I heard that version. I actually recorded that on my last album.
Oh.
But I love that song.
All
and
right.
I just think that's one of the sweetest lyrically. It's great.
That's beautiful.
This other song, though, that just recently.
Can we just talk about Joni for a moment?
Oh, my God.
Just the things she's done in this last year, and the support from other artists like Brandi Carlile. Just so many people, and being able to show their respect for where they got their music. I love it so much.
What I love about it is that Brandi Carlile really has gotten her to feel comfortable, I think, to, as we age, and women aging, and also I think that Joni maybe has had not a stroke, but some health issues.
Oh yeah. I won't go into those.
But that she's, I think she also quit the music industry because she was totally over it, right?
Yeah.
And she's an incredibly gifted, inspirational person in all of our lives. But that she built a relationship with Brandi, however they did that, and trust her.
Yes.
That's what I see on that stage, is that yes, queen, here's your freaking throne, sit right here.
She deserves it.
And that she's felt comfortable getting back out there, because it's
so beautiful.
So beautiful.
I love seeing it. That's so cool. And I really appreciate that you chose Case of You. That's awesome.
I want to choose one more song, though.
Okay.
Michael Kiwanuka. I don't know if I'm spelling it right. Kiwunaka or U. An album, Home, that he released a long time ago. I just found it. This song, Getting Ready. I'm a Get Ready.
Okay.
Is just breathtaking. I grabbed my guitar, I closed my office door, and just learned how to play it and sing it, and it's so great.
What is it about that song?
First of all, he's playing an open E that kind of add on and open that warm the sound of the guitar that and those chords that sound really lovely and great. So it's the guitar, it's his voice, it's the E's. He has an incredible soul voice. He's from I don't think he's from London. I don't know where he's from in England, but it's fantastic. And then the lyrics are I just didn't know how hard it was going to be, but will you, kind of calling the spirit, will you really be there for me? And because I'm getting ready to believe. And it's it's a beautiful song.
Okay, I love this.
Yeah,
I can't wait to listen to that. I haven't heard that song, or maybe I haven't. I don't know it. But on the way home tonight, thank you for
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, help me with that playlist. Cool. I hope it's on Spotify, because that's where I want to organize everything.
It is.
Okay, beautiful. That's so amazing. Thank you.
Well, I want to say too, thank you for being here on a Saturday night doing this here.
Yeah.
And wanting to talk about, my own journey and share your journey. And it does take away, hopefully, the feeling that I think everybody has to push and go hard. Just remember that it's the rest days are just as important as the push days, if not more.
Yeah.
And really feeling good in your skin and taking care of yourself is always.
I appreciate that advice. Yeah. I'll try to remember that when I need them.
tomorrow. Be off tomorrow.
Yeah. Actually, my family was talking about a beach day, so
good.
I think that'll happen.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is What Could Be Bad. We'll see you next week.
Cool. All right, rolling.
Can I give you a hug?
Yes.
So Michael sings the Pretty Little Light.